women in my many years, but I think Valmai is the most fascinating. I adore her. No. Librarian, explorer, adventurous, writer, editrix, wine lover, equestrian, horse breeder, bibliophile, as Rod said, and perhaps the last of the blue stockings, Valmai Hankel. What is your joy? When are you at your happiest?
Yes, I'm giving that some thought, Peter. I would say probably out in the red deserts on my own, when there's silence and peace and an endless horizon, and trees maybe, especially gidgee trees, which are my very favourite. That probably doesn't mean anything to you if I say gidgee, does it? It does for some. Well, they're old and gnarled and they look about 500 years old, and they may well be 500 years old, and they might be 50 years old, and I just love them. And desert oaks. And I was explaining and answering this question, Peter. I just love the peace and quiet and being a part of it. And it's also good to have someone to share it with too. But it's another matter.
In a way, yes. In a way, you have a very ideal life. When Valmai comes on ABC radio, as you've been doing for a very long time, Valmai, since
too long, probably.
With Philip Satchel, when was the first time you were on?
I remember 1978, and I remember, never having done this before, somebody had said to me, what you need to do is take a list of questions and answers with you to the studio and give them to Philip. Well, he thought of that. He was not impressed, but we got over that little hurdle, that it was all right after that, but I didn't know.
And then you work with Philip, then you work with Carol Whitelock for many years,
yes.
Then with me and others along the way. But when Valmai comes on, you can relate to this. Women, particularly women, and particularly it pleases me, the young women, want to be her. That she seems to be, you seem to have such an ideal life. I mean, you work very hard at it, but people want to be, they envy the freedom that you achieve.
I think that applies especially to the travel bit.
Yes.
Can I just tell a little story about how that all started?
Yes.
Which many of you will know. I got interested in explorers in grade 3 at PGC when I got into trouble for reading a book on Australian explorers under my desk during an arithmetic lesson. The teacher noticed, and I got into big trouble. That teacher, Mrs. Allen, we called her Mrs. Alligator for good reason. I can literally date my interest in Australian exploration to her. And 10 years or so later, I saw the film, which many of you I'm sure have seen, The Bank Beyond, which shows the male and top the film star heading up the Birdsville track. And when I saw that film at school, showing by the geography club, I want to go there, I want to see that country. Well, I had to wait, that was 54, I had to wait 30 years before, with my husband, we bought a Toyota Land Cruiser, and he had known somebody who had lived at Lake Calabarina off the Birdsville track, which is somewhere I clearly wanted to go. I don't know whether that means anything to many of you, what Lake Calabarina is and where it is. It was the site of a mission station, Lutheran mission station, in the 1860s, and that's way off the track.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. But this combination of, because you're a gregarious person, you like company, and you're very funny, and you enjoy company, and yet you also enjoy a kind of solitary life. You like...
I do.
Yes, you're a sort of gregarious loner. Yes. And I suppose it's the solitude that it inspires a lot of people, because we'd all like to be alone. But you're not really alone in that landscape, are you? Because it speaks to you.
Yes, it does. I don't know what it says all the time.
No.
But it does. Just very briefly, when my husband was alive, we did a number of trips, particularly with members of the Royal Geographical Society, some of whom are here today, across the Simpson Desert, and particularly the Canning Stock route. And I did all the driving on those trips. And in 1991 we decided, he hadn't been well, we decided we'd like to do one more last trip, which was following as much as possible in the footsteps of our hero explorer, John McDougal Stewart, as he headed north to Darwin. And I won't give a lecture about Stewart, much as I'd like to. But Dennis died of Catherine on that trip, and I was absolutely devastated, needless to say. I didn't know what I was going to do. Somehow days go on and life goes on.
It's a long time to be widowed.
Yes, it is, you're right. I wasn't that old then.
No.
And 3-4 years went by, and I thought I'd love to see the Outback country again. And what was stopping me? Nothing. So I planned a trip to Longreach and back on dirt roads as much as possible. And you may not believe this, but I still am an apprehensive person, not full of self-confidence. And for me to plan a whole trip and then carry it out, and the only problem I had was one flat tire, which I managed to mend myself. Couldn't do that now. And I cannot tell you what a confidence booster that was. Having got over that first trip, I thought, well, I've done it once, why can't I do it again? So every year, from 94 to 2014, I went on an Outback trip, often to the same places, met fascinating people. And well, when I look back on it, I still don't know how I did that first trip. But once you've done it, it becomes easier the second and third times. However, that was up to 2014. I knew then that the Parkinson's disease was beginning to grab me with its tentacles. So last year wasn't a time to go on my own. Unfortunately, those days are over.
You've been initially with Dennis, and you were kindred souls. Then that whole period on your own, and then many other people had offered to go.
I don't know how serious these offers really were. If it came to the point, but George was serious.
Yes.
I don't know how much he regrets it.
But George was a wonderful man, and he was a good companion.
Oh, absolutely. I've never laughed so much in all my life.
Yes, wonderful. And George made that happen. It's very important. Will you go again?
Well, I'd love to. That's up to George.
Yes. It's something you need to do, isn't it?
It is, and this is the time of the year when I start planning these trips. And I'm going to be missing the fact that I'm not planning it. However, with George, I still hope something will happen this year. Self-indulgence, let's not deny it.
Is it, Dave?
Well, I think some would say it is. I suppose I am lucky being able to do it. I am lucky to like being alone in that country, or any other country for that matter. As I keep saying, I'm all right if everything goes all right. If it doesn't, I'm a total mess.
I know it constrains you mentally. It's a terrible weight on you, Valmai, but it doesn't stop you doing all these things that you do. You know, you have an avid public speaking schedule. You're in here with the friends. You're on radio. You have an active social life. 13
horses to look after.
And you have 13 horses to look after on a remote property in the middle of nowhere in the Mallee, in a house with no electricity. And when this lady is heaving bales of hay into an unregistered ute. That's how she spends her weekends.
Like that. Well, the unregistered registration is legitimate because the vehicle doesn't go out in the open road at all.
No. Where is what's the Outback?
Beyond Chep's Cross, someone said.
Not beyond Port Augusta.
The lovely mile country.
Yes.
Beyond Port Augusta. Another tree I didn't mention.
I love the mile tree. You know,
so
like the
different.
Gidgee.
Oh yeah, I like miles too.
Yes. That black wood.
Yes.
And the ancient. They are ancient trees, aren't they?
Oh yes.
I felt that when I saw that tree. There's an enormous gum tree, possibly the biggest gum tree I've ever seen, which is on the banks of Cooper Creek there in America, near where Burke died.
Yes.
And it's salutary to think that he saw that tree was there well between, possibly hundreds of years before him. And there it is still there, sentinel. And you feel this too.
It's an amazing feeling.
It's a kind of romance of the past, isn't it? And on these guided trips that you do, they're guided in the sense that you're very conscious of following in the footsteps of explorers and pioneers.
That's stretching a long way. I mean, I do say that, but of course, I don't go off on, since I've been on my own, I would never tackle anything like the Canning Stock route or anything like that. I do tend to stick to tracks, but also I've been fortunate enough to stay with some station people, several different lots of them, who have shared my interest in explorers, especially John and Doyle Stewart. And I've seen Polly's Corner, a famous landmark where Stewart's favourite horse gave birth to a foal, and other places important in Stewart's activities that most people have not seen because it's on private property. And similarly, a couple of years ago, I was in a country where Leichhardt was, and near where Gilbert was speared by an Aborigines, speared to death. And it is, I mean, the landscape has changed, no question of that in most instances, but you still get a feel, I think, for it. And I maintain to my dying day that you can understand a lot more about the problems our explorers had to deal with, the problems our early settlers had to deal with, if you've actually been out in that country and seen it yourself. And even more so, if you're on your own, I think. It gives you a heightened awareness. Another favourite place of mine, I love Outback, Queensland, I love its pubs. And another place is where, I'm sure many of you will know, Bandar Hanson's poem, A Bush Christening, on the Outback, where the churches are few and men of religion are scanty, etc. Well, I've found that place, and it's near a little town called Yarraka in Queensland.
I know you have a fascination with Stuart, and as do I suppose. He's so diminished, isn't he, compared with the Burke and Wills expedition?
Yes, well, there's the old story about failure being what people in Australia take note of.
Yeah, it's a nation, I always think that this nation rewards failure and punishes success.
Yes.
And we're attracted to glorious failures, Gallipoli, Burke and Wills, Eureka, etc.
Exactly, yes. And everything I read these days goes in one eye and out the other, but I was reading something the other day about two other explorers, and I can't remember their names. I think one was Gregory, A.C. Gregory, who explored in northern Australia in terrible conditions, and again did not lose the life of one man. And who's heard of him? Nobody knows about him. He was successful.
You see, it can't be well successful. That's hopeless.
Yeah.
But and you're well known throughout Outback Australia, well, that kind of area that you do, South Australia and Queensland. I know Linny Plata is here today, who would know you from Oodnadatta. As you come, and country people recall you coming along at 40 kilometres an hour.
I don't know where you get this from.
No, I know, that is something of a myth. But you don't exactly rock it along, do you?
But it depends.
Does she, George?
Yes.
Yes. Rock it.
Rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Books are crucial to you. It's been a profession, but also it's a great love in your life, the book.
Yes. Well, first of all, of course, as I mentioned earlier, pony stories, I read a lot. And then as I got older and time went by, I started work at the State Library. Never going to be a librarian, although when I thought librarians did nothing else but read books, I thought that was pretty attractive. Not so. And the State Library, the public library, as it was then called, back in 1950 something or other, 56 I think it was, held an exhibition on the history of the book in the library. And on display was this absolutely fascinating book, a 13th century Italian manuscript, which has actually been written about in the latest issue of the State Library's e-news, big book, bigger than the Sunday Bible, and a lot more beautiful, written on vellum in 13th century Italy with the most glorious, brilliant blues, greens, reds, and real gold. And I had never seen a book like it. I was absolutely bowled over by this book. Little did I know that for some 36 years I would have been its caretaker. That I can say that that book, and also one woman who might be known to some of you here, Professor Jean White, were responsible for me becoming a librarian. And I was so upset to find that we didn't sit down and read books all day. Any reading you did in your own time, thank you very much.
You were in the old children's library?
I was in the old children's library.
Back here in the destitute?
Barracks.
The barracks, where you might have helped me.
I know, when have you been there? You've got to work out 1948.
Yeah, I do, yeah. Well, anyway, I was there. And did you go from children's library to rare books?
Sorry, I started off in the research service, which was a sort of elite part of the library where you did advanced inquiries, and it was a wonderful place to work. There were terrific staff there, including one Jack Wells, who won the Poet Cross for bravery during the war as a pilot. I think I've got that right. And oh yes, I remember one inquiry that I answered. What were the diesel principles of the Malays 2,000 years ago? Diesel. I didn't even know, and I still don't know, even though I drive a diesel vehicle, what the diesel principles are, let alone the Malays 2,000 years ago. But I found quite a lot about it. This was well in the days before Google, so you've got to look in newspapers and indexes and so on. And I found quite a lot of material. I remember that Jack Wells, the aforementioned boss, saying to him, well, you've now realised the true value of research, because that's what this was. And then I went to the children's library, just kicking and screaming. I did not want to go there because I didn't like the bloke who was in charge. He was a real harsh time, demanding nothing but the best from him. Ironically, he turned out to become my husband a few years later.
Did he get the best from you? Yes. Well, the bush defines us, doesn't it, as a nation. Yet few Australians actually go into it, or certainly into the outback. Yet it does define us, don't you think, Valmai?
Yes, I certainly do.
But we sit as a...
We don't go out, well, if we do go out there, it's a big adventure.
Yes, but we sit on this sort of, on the veranda of the nation, looking out to sea, ignoring that vast expanse, that terra nullius, or the myth of terra nullius behind us, which kind of defines us, but yet we don't investigate, we rarely go into it.
Well, that's true of a lot of people. I mean, there are more and more people, grey nomads and so on, who do go into it. But I always wonder, what are they getting out of it? What sort of preparation do they do? Well, it's there to be explored, to be appreciated, and to be loved, or to be feared even.
To be feared, yes. Well, Patrick White said Australia doesn't really like people, and you can relate to that.
Yes, I can.
It is a very harsh environment.
Yes, it's an interesting comment. I've never heard that before.
You love wine.
Yes. Yes, that's something else too. I've written to the Adelaide Review for some years, and when Christopher Pearson was editor, I did a few things about rare books for the Adelaide Review. And then his wine writer was being a bit unreliable, and he asked me if I would become the Adelaide Review's wine writer. Adelaide Review's wine writer? Me? What do I know about wine? He said, well, you've drunk a fair bit of it. And you've been an associate judge at wine shows and so on. And he and his offside were very persuasive. And, I said, I'll do it just for a little while and just see how it goes. I did it for 10 years. And it was wonderful. I had some absolutely superb experiences of tasting wine meeting people that would never have happened otherwise. And the most memorable to me, those of you who know about wine or know about this, Sepulchre's liqueur, port it's sometimes called. It's a fortified red wine, which Sepulchre's first made in 1978 and put down bottles to keep. And they've kept them every year since 1878, and I went to tasting once, also the 1878 one. It's a bit like standing under the gum trees of what here you are tasting me, a piece of Australia's not just wine history, but social history. I tried, I don't know whether I succeeded or not, to make my wine rating interesting and understand.
Well, you were telling a story.
Yeah, and there are so many stories to be told about wine, and the human stories are all.
And the experience of drinking it.
And I had some interesting experiences when I was in my travels. For instance, at a place called Georgetown in Queensland. I've no idea how many Georgetowns there are in South Australia, but I was staying at a motel there called the Latara Resort. We use the word resort. Anyway, I booked in, as I do when I did these trips, I'd always reserve when I was going to stay at a motel or something, I'd reserve it from Adelaide. And I went to the Tara Resort, and it was a hot day, and I said, "Do you have any red wine?" Huh? Said the sloppy girl, and thongs and so on. "Do you have any claret?" I thought I'd try a different way of putting it. And she said, "I don't know, I'll go and have a look." Because I was going to, if they did, I was going to have it put on the ice and have a nice cold drink of red wine with my dinner that night. About 20 minutes later, she slip-slopped back in again with 2 bottles in her hand. One was McWilliam's cream sherry. The other was another McWilliam's sweet wine, I forget exactly what it was. That was the best supply.
Well, you're on your own in Australia. Please. No, I think yes, we might go to questions now. Are you feeling all right? Good, yes. Now, questions of our remarkable Valmai.
Or the Valmai and Peter. I keep wanting to lick this as well.
Good, no questions.